the hour, 12 noon. I was going to say maybe we should give it a minute for some more people to join, but this is a recorded, meeting. So, to Chris's point, I think we should just get rolling. So I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today. It's been amazing to see David Morgan just over a year ago go through the BCLE 2000 course, get a certification. And now I think you're coming up on your 1 year work anniversary at Southern Glacier Wine and Spirits.
Yep, that's correct.
My phone was ringing. Going from E9 chief in the Marine Corps to now the director of business continuity on the western side of the United States. So from what I understand, Southern Glacier Wine and Spirits is the largest liquor distributor in North America, and your onus of that is anything west of the Mississippi. Is that right, David?
Not quite west of the Mississippi, just basically New Mexico and over is the easiest way to break it down.
Okay, but nevertheless, we've been super impressed. David was part of our mentorship, part of Minty in our mentorship program. And it's just been amazing to see his success story and how happy he is in his current role. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Steve.
Thanks. Hey, first, I just want to start off by saying, Chris, Dan, and Keith, obviously, I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. I want to keep this as informal as possible. I do have on my other screen over here the chat. So if anybody wants to throw any questions as we go through, that's fine. The presentation, I'm thinking, is probably going to be about 25 minutes. And then what we can do is just kick right on over to any questions that y'all may want to talk about. I'm an open book. I'll talk about anything that you want to. But once again, I really want to thank the opportunity to dive into doing this. So as you can see, that's what I look like in the military as I was getting ready to get out. And as you can see, I'm actually smiling in my civilian photo because I'm super happy to be retired. So I know that everybody on the call, as you're getting ready to transition out, it's a little scary. It's like, hey, what's next? And I'm here to tell you, like, we'll talk about it in the presentation. Everything that you have done in the military makes your transition that much easier if you do it the same way that you did it in the military. It's like eating an elephant. Just bite one bite at a time and just continue to push. So without further ado, I want to talk about like leveraging your military leadership into how you can become corporate and resiliency. So first, I want to talk about, my time in the Marine Corps. So I did 23 and a half years. It's time in the Marine Corps. I served in the field artillery. I was a Master Gunnery Sergeant, field artillery chief, worked for an 06 colonel. And then I was also selected to go up to start working in the Pentagon. They wanted me to work and be the senior representative for the artillery field for the Marine Corps. I just decided that I didn't want to go work in a cubicle in that funny shaped building. I wasn't going to get a corner office with windows. So I decided it was time for me to transition out. I led multiple high level operations, conducted strategic planning and crisis response for 2 artillery regiments across the Marine Corps, and really enjoyed my time doing that. I talked a little bit about like why I transitioned. I really wanted to no longer do the Marine Corps after I retired from the Marine Corps. So as you know, that most people, when they retire out of the military, they tend to stay in the military. They tend to try and, hey, how do I, it's just easy. So let me just go back to that. I decided that's not the route I wanted to go. I wanted to start at the bottom, not the bottom again, but I wanted to start in a new company doing something and, redefine who David Morgan was, no longer Master Guns Morgan. I aimed that I wanted to continue service, but I wanted to change that to how can I take the skills that I learned at the leadership level that I learned and take that into a corporate world? How do I do that? Major revamp of obviously the way we speak, the way we talk, what we talk about, how we address people, things of that nature was a really tough challenge for me. Growing up in a community with over 16 years that it was all male, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to happen. Keep your mouth shut. I'm sure you can all relate to that. it changed, and it changed pretty significant for me. But that small time in the Marine Corps where we were able to do that, I was able to grow significantly. So I wanted to take my tactical experience and I wanted to change it into more of a business impact. And how did I do that? So I had the same mission. I just wanted to do business continuity. My time as I got ready to figure out what I wanted to do is in the Marine Corps. I talked to a gentleman, good friend of mine that's in the was in the Marine Corps with me. His name's Gail Anders. He helps lead the business continuity for Netflix, and he was like, "Hey man, you're going to go to this class. I'm going to help you get in, and trust me, you're going to fit it. You're going to fit right in." So I was like, "Okay, let's try it." So it's been almost 2 years now. I know that they said it was a year, but it's been almost 2 years since I was able to complete my certification. And I flew out from Texas out to California. I did the class like we all did, and then I was like, okay, this is what I could see myself doing. As I was getting ready to transition out of the Marine Corps, I was like, I don't know what I want to do or how I want to do this. And a lot of guidance that I got from some people were, you got to find a company that kind of fits with who you are. And I was like, okay, how do you do that? I just really had to start researching a lot of companies. Daniel and I were transitioning about the same time, and him and I would play back and forth. It felt like ping pong from time to time. Or, hey, what are you doing? What am I doing? Who are you talking to? Well, this is who I'm talking to. And I think it was kind of an unspoken bond between him and I. We never applied for the same roles. So I would call him and say, hey, I'm looking at this position. What do you think? He was like, hey, I think that'd be a great position for you. Maybe do that. But he never applied for that position, and he would do the same thing for me. So I really appreciated that. And it was good to find somebody that you could trust and lean on. I would send him my resume. He would kind of help critique it. And then I would do the same thing for him. And we were a lot of back and forth. So that helped me transition into my current role, which is I got hired for business continuity director for the West region. So, we all know what business continuity is, but how does that change from company to company really is in the job description. So I oversee the planning, emergency preparedness, disaster recovery for multiple states. So just think of the 9 Western states, starting at New Mexico and moving over all the way to Hawaii. So yes, don't worry, Keith, I will get to go to Hawaii for a business trip. So really looking forward to that. They really had to twist my arm hard for that one.
Yeah, that sounds tough.
Yeah. So I wanted
Please
to
bring me along.
You can pay for it, and you can stay in the room with me. It'll only be awkward for you. So my military to corporate skills translation was, I was used to working at pretty high levels. It was never I was never worried about talking to a lieutenant colonel and down, and I just gave the respect for the 06 and up, and that translated well to being able to speak to vice presidents, senior vice presidents, and a lot of corporate individuals. I will tell you that the way that I present things hasn't changed from the military. I approach everything in the same manner that I do. A lot of preparation, a lot of researching. Who am I going to present to? And a lot of those were the skills that I translated. I got from the military. If I was presenting to a general grade officer, I would, hey, what is his background? Okay, he's logistics. So he doesn't know about artillery as much as an artillery, general grade officer. So I take that same principle into how I'm going to present things. So one thing that we're working on here is a national plan of continuity of operations. We call it the NCOOP. But the continuity of operations plan is the same thing that you do in business continuity is, hey, what if this impacts the business? And how do we continue to do that? So one thing that we think of is, if one of our distribution centers were to go down, how do we continue to surge product into the new, into that division? As you can imagine, everybody wants their alcohol. So when it comes to that, we have to take a logical process into that. Not every state carries the same alcohol, So, and not every division carries the same product. So when we do that, we have to do a lot of analysis and looking at those, like, what is this product? How much do they sell? What's another division that sells the same thing? And then rerouting logistical support for that. We also work with our insurance, FM, which is a big thing when you talk about, I know you learned about business impact insurance, things of that nature. And when you're doing the business impact analysis, it's like you would be surprised that you're actually in the process. Nobody tells you, hey, we're going to do a business impact analysis and this is how you're going to do it. You just start looking at the problem and analyzing how you can do that and then deciding what factors you're going to take into place. The crisis leadership and stakeholder coordination, that's pretty easy for all of us. We all think, hey, what does my boss probably need to know for this incident? My direct supervisor, what he wants to know is if it hits national news, I want to know about it. You need to send me the 5 W's about what's going on. They're not called the 5 W's out here, but you're basically breaking down, hey, here's the situation, here's what's going on, this is why it's going on, and then, hey, is there any impact to our business? The first question out of my boss's mouth, that's why it aligned so well for me for Southern Glaciers, is, hey, what's the impact to our people? Like, cool, like we could lose trucks, hey, we could lose a building, I'm good with that. That's money. We can throw more money at it. But what we can't do is, we don't want to lose our personnel. So the one thing I can tell you, that's how I found a company that aligned well with me. I always thought my personnel were the most important aspect to my team. So that's where I always wanted to protect as much as possible. So that aligned well with who I was. Next is your after action reviews, which are just your incident assessments and trying to figure out continuous improvements. It's a very simple thing, and those are the things that from the military, you're indoctrinated, you're trained, you're worked with, and you're constantly improving any process that you're in. It's a key thing. So that's how, like, all of my military skills has really helped translate and coordinate into my corporate skills. Here's a few things that I've been able to accomplish. Just so you know, I just returned from a trip yesterday. I was up in Reno, Nevada, and I was conducting a tabletop exercises. But I've also led a regional one. So, hey, if this happens, I don't know why they decided to pick this impact, but hey, what if California fell off into the market, or fell off into the ocean based off of a large-scale earthquake? I was able to, how do we continue to take care of the west of the region, because they're not affected, but what do we need to do to take care of our personnel? What do we need to do? Is there any way that we can recover our operations a little bit faster with half of California now underwater? I've also done active shooter, earthquakes, wildfires. I've kind of done all those types of exercises. And then I've worked on our scalable framework. So it's not just about, hey, how does it impact this one individual division or this building inside of that division? It also works into how is it going to affect the entire region, and I've scaled it all the way up to the company. The West region has the most what we call tier ones, so the highest performers, the ones that make the most money. So as you can imagine, Vegas makes a lot of money from booze. That helps to the overall pocket. Southern California, Northern California, and Hawaii actually makes a lot of money for the company. So those tier one divisions are very highly protected for the company, and being able to step in as the regional director and being responsible for those, it's not something to take lightly. So that's what I've been able to do. The next thing I want to talk about is feeling for the future. Like, what has helped me in the last 12 months go from wearing the uniform to doing this. And I picked this photo because it was something that I've really taken seriously. So I transitioned, and as I got ready to leave the Marine Corps, I decided, I need to have an education that matches my experience. So it's great. You're going to be able to sit at the table one day if you don't get the yes, Daniel, the smile is getting bigger as I have transitioned out. You're 100% correct. I wanted to have an education that matches the experience that I bring to the table. So I just completed my master's in business for veterans at USC, which was great. It really has helped me take and understand the business terminology that's being said in some meetings. Before I didn't understand what's the difference between finance and accounting. Hey, you both deal with money. What's the difference? There is a significant difference. The next was I've decided, so I've got my business continuity planning for the future, right? Hey, how do I plan for the future? So I got that certification. I understand that. I'm now going to pursue my master's in emergency management. So once again, I have the experience in managing emergencies, I'm going to get the education to back that. So now I'm thinking of it like a sandwich. So business continuity is the top part of the bread. I want to do the emergency management, which is going to be the meat and dressing. And then the next, I'm going to do disaster recovery. That's the bottom side of the bread. So now I've got this nice, pretty sandwich that I'm going to eat that really encompasses the entire, disaster recovery, incident, impact to a business. That way I'm very well-rounded for my move up. So those are the things. So my ongoing growth is understanding that, hey, cool, just because you got a job and you're going to work 40 hours a week, that's awesome. But what are you doing to continue to develop yourself? And that's something that we did learn in the military as well. So trying to get back. So it was a very intense program for the Masters of Business. I didn't get a chance to do a lot of mentorship inside the VOP, which I am going to be looking at starting. Just so you know, Keith, I'm going to have to fill out that documentation to apply for it. But I've mentored a lot of like my fellow veterans, just people that have reached out to me. There's a gentleman reached out through LinkedIn, was like, hey, I saw your company. I see that you're a vet. I'm interested in applying for a couple roles. And I've actually got his resume in front of the right people to apply for these positions. So I've done kind of that. That has helped me. That is rewarding. We've got to take care of our own. That's, really hard to do because you're like, in the military, we all know not everybody's out to make the entire team become as successful as possible. Well, when you become a veteran, that's our job. We have to take care of each other. I also advocate for the leadership in the business continuity and resilience. Dan, the man over there, has done a lot, in his transition and continuing to help out fellow veterans. He does a lot of mentorship. He mentored me, really helped me. Chris really helped me. He would sit down and talk with me a lot. And then also Keith and I have linked and been able to do a lot of just, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? So that mentorship is also just as much as your responsibility to take on as much as it is to receive. So these are the things. Your mission it has to continue. So you have to figure out what it is. So as I was getting ready to transition, I really liked helping the junior Marines and young sailors that were underneath my leadership. I just decided that now it's time under a different banner. I still get invited back to do Marine Corps artillery things. Hey, can you come speak at this graduation? Hey, we want you to come to our St. Barbara's Day event. We want you to do these types of things, which is great. But you also have to take that same responsibility and do it inside of our community. So I challenge each of you to do that as you're getting ready to live this. Take notes on what made you successful. That way you can share those key lessons over, and then you're obviously going to have to give up the most valuable asset that you have, which is your time. You have to give time to people. And the biggest thing is, we really are unmatched in all corporate environments. We really are. I can walk into a room and I know if there's another veteran in that room. And it is just about their command presence that they have. It's quite funny. Like I was in all my team for a week, literally 1 week, and they were like, "Hey, what do you think about this, Dave?" Well, I think it should be like this, 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 and this. And they're like, "Those are great recommendations. We're implementing it." And I was like, "This is a week. Like, how are you? I get it. You've hired me for this role and things of that nature, but just being a fresh set of eyes and then deciding, hey, you need to hear what I'm saying and the lens that I am presenting, because that's why you got hired for the role. But that leadership and the experience that you bring to the team is going to be completely unmatched. So I always want to tell you, like, if they hired you for the position and you were in that company, guess what? They want your opinion. They're paying you for it. So start giving it. It is good to sit back and relax, just like what we did when we first joined new units, sit back. But they're not going to let you sit back for 30 days like they did in the military where, I'm going to take a little time, fill out the unit, see what I need to, they're not paying you for that. They're paying you for your opinion. They've already decided they want you. You're on their team to do those things. So with that, I'm going to pull it to a close. I'm going to open it up for any questions. I think that was right at about 21 minutes. So that's pretty good. That's what I said I wanted to. I want to respect everybody's time. I know it's Juneteenth. I'm actually at work. Alcohol, for some reason, doesn't take federal holidays. I don't like that, but there you are. We got to get booze out to everybody. So I'll open it up for questions. You're welcome to post them in the chat, or if Chris, Dan, or Keith, you have anything that you want to expand on, please.
Yeah. David, there's like two things that you mentioned. First was kind of like that you and I were working together, right, on resumes, and we were basically training the trainer. If you're learning, you can learn better if you're teaching. So you may not know the content, but if you're actively processing that and then trying to show others what you've learned, and I think that's what we've had a lot of success in, crafting out our resumes and finding that right shape and then shooting it out there, getting rejected, fixing it, going to interviews and everything like that. So that was really one of the big things that helped me along the way. I think helped you along the way as well. Was we found each other and we just started, teaching each other, even though we didn't know what we were doing, and then it worked really well. So I think I would encourage other people to do that same thing. Find someone that's going at that same mission and then teach them what you've learned so far, and then learn what they've learned so far. Then the second thing, like you mentioned Southern Glaciers, and I remember your pathway into Southern Glaciers. You had the long interview path, right? It was like 9 or 10 interviews or whatever, but it meant more to you that they strung you along all those interviews because they actually cared about the process and the people that they were going to hire into the position, and you had confidence that you were going to like the place that you were working in. It was the same thing for me, like, coming into NS, the hiring process was a big tell for how satisfied I was going to be in the job. And I didn't want some shitty job. I wanted to have a job that was a place like the military. Like, I had that great environment. I liked it, hey, up and downs, but like the people really made it, and people cared about you. And I wanted that same kind of thing, just less work. So I think that's something that, you mentioned, the people factor, and actually liking what you were going into, because I think a lot of people in the audience here are probably out there trying to chase the next thing, but it's good to slow down and find the thing that's the right fit.
Yeah, so let me expand a little bit on that. So Daniel's right. I did 9 interviews with 17 different people from inside the company. So obviously a couple of the interviews were almost like a panel thing. And I will tell you that, like, the fact that they didn't take and say, okay, we're going to do 3 interviews and see if he's the right fit. No, like, I interviewed with multiple VPs, senior vice presidents, regional presidents, my team, how is I going to fit? They all had a vote in it. And I will tell you, and I'm going to say this, and I don't mean this in a negative connotation at all. The company is very incestuous, meaning if I am in the company and my son wants a job, he's probably going to get a job. We just got to find that job. It happens like that. Very, 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 in this company specifically, it's a family, privately owned company, and they are very, very big about, hey, if you're in the door, you bring in people in the door is what is going to continue to make this company very, very, very solid. So I was Nick, the new guy outsider, didn't know anybody in the company because a couple of people on day one was like, well, who do you know? Nobody. They were like, how'd you get this job? And I was like, I interviewed well. What do you mean by that? But now after about a year in this company, I can tell you that, like, and that's where our responsibility is to take care of our fellow veterans, is to now be there. My foot's in the door. I have that door wide open, and I'm trying to pull people in. So if I hear of a leadership role, I'm calling back to multiple people that I know saying, hey, are you interested in this job? And helping them get into it. So yes, you're right, Daniel. And like, kind of leading back to what I talked about, is finding a company that aligns with who you are is what is important. It's not like the money's going to be there. There are plenty of companies that will pay you $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 to do specific roles. One, if they're paying you that much, they want you to do that much. So you need to remember that is the money, the one thing that you're worried about, because some of us want that work-life balance. This role, I was very lucky to get into it. It gives me a lot of work-life balance. Like my job, my boss works in Florida. He doesn't check on me every day. He's just like, hey, I hired you to do your job. Give me 40 hours a week. What do I care when those 40 hours are? So if you have to get up early because there's an incident going on that you need to track, so be it. That starts as your 8-hour workday. So then if I'm off at 1 and I'm in my office, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and I see that you touched on giving back, and that's something that I'd like to talk a little bit about, is that when I was transitioning out of the military, I was always asking the people ahead of me that were leaving, what was your challenge with your transition? And the biggest thing that most people told me is leaving the military kind of provided like a void or a gap in their life. You know, they're missing that camaraderie. They're missing, wearing that uniform and just walking into the room and having instant credibility. I mean, there's all these things that are associated with putting on the uniform and wearing it across your career, and that certainly was missing. But to David's point, giving back fills that void. You reestablish that camaraderie with everyone, helping those coming behind you, to have another success story. So, I mean, that's for me, that's my intrinsic motivator to giving back. But it just gives you that sense of pride and a sense of belonging. So that's it for me.
100%. You have to, and your transition, you will realize how much time you actually have. Like I used to think, like, oh, I'm so busy all the time. You finally realize how much time you actually waste. So you can actually find some time to give back a little bit. So yeah, I agree.
Hey, David, thinking about, some of your transition challenges and everything, I remember like letting go of all the stuff you had going on in the military and finally getting you to convince to like focus on you. That was one thing that was a challenge, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you're at a, particular level and you're doing all of the transition out, like you still have this like dire need to want to not be looked at like a turd, and you're not. Why are you not giving the Marine Corps, up to the last minute? Here's why: the Marine Corps took you and paid you to go to boot camp to learn how to be a Marine or Airman or Army or whatever the case may be. They took you and paid you to do that. So yeah, that's good. But they also have built in a transition time that allows you to learn how to be a civilian again. And you need to take that very seriously. Here's the thing, like you have to take some time for yourself. You have to. There were many times I was on a call during a normal workday with one of y'all, just talking about things, you dialing into these and kind of just learning and listening. So if you're not really working at trying to take the uniform off, even while you're wearing it, you won't be prepared. You won't be prepared for the transition. So, Mick, I see that you have a question. Okay.
What shocked you or really surprised you from civilian over the Marine Corps?
Where do you start?
Okay. This was the biggest shock. It doesn't matter how many times me and Daniel talked about it, me and Keith talked about it, or Chris and I talked about it, or even Alan talked about it. It's preparing for the contract negotiation for your job. I must have gone through probably 10 or 15. I felt confident. I'm going to ask for this. I'm going to ask for this. I want this. I think, which is completely different than what we're used to in the military. In the military, hey, I know I'm going to get a pay raise in January. I know it just depends on what that percentage is. I know that I'm going to get hopefully, maybe I get a re-enlistment bonus. I know that I'm getting 30 days off. Like, your benefits in the military because they're in black and white. They're very easy. You to ask for them here. I'll tell you how the contract negotiation went for me. It was very easy. I got an email from, my current boss now. And the boss was like, hey, want to have a conversation with you about let you know where you stand in the hiring process. Okay. What's available for you? I'm available whenever you are. Okay, I'll call you in like 30 minutes. Okay, cool. I'm on the phone call with him, and he goes, hey, Dave, look, everybody in the company loves you. Everybody that you've interviewed with really thinks that you'd be a huge asset. So we want to offer you the position. I was like, okay. And they were like, hey, we'll knock the salary out first. I was like, all right. He goes, we're going to offer you exactly what you asked for. I go, okay. He goes, what else you want? Oh, so we're in this process. And it didn't, I was like, well, I just got accepted for this college program. It requires me to be there all day Friday, all day Saturday, twice a month. I really want to do that. And he goes, okay, so you need Friday off twice a month? Yes. Okay, done. Anything else you want? And I'm like, no, I guess I'm good. And he goes, okay, cool. We'll send you over the formal job offer. It was that quick. And I was like, I left so much stuff on the table I wanted. I even had a list of things that I knew I wanted. I wanted to tell him, hey, I've grown accustomed to having 30 days of paid vacation a year. I would like to transition that. I mean, the things that I know now, I could have really asked for more. And I just didn't. I was so excited that they called and offered me the position. In almost every single class, they started off with, hey, don't accept the offer when they call you to talk about the offer. Tell them, hey, I need 24 hours to consider the position. I need to do those things. So what shocked me the most, what really surprised me the most, is how quick that could happen. And so I would tell you that's really good. And then your interaction with your coworkers, it is not like the military. You can't just walk in, hey, fuckers, sorry for the language. You can't just walk in and say, hey, what's going on? You have to be on your best behavior. Just imagine that there's a bunch of general grade officers walking around. That's the behavior you need to be at when you're walking around SIP-Div. So, Mick, I hope that really answered your question. I really beat down on a couple things, but really was how quick that contract negotiation. I'm prepared if I ever go for another role. I'm prepared for some better things to ask for, but I kind of feel like I punted this one in the sand. Now, super ecstatic about the company. Love the company. Love what I've got to do. But that's where I would tell you, if you could learn from what I feel like to be a hiccup from mine, so be it.
I remember when you were going through the class at Camp Pendleton, I spoke to your class and you asked me a specific question. What is it like just showing up to work on day one? And because I guess there's a lot of anxiety. I mean, you're a chief, or you were a chief, and there's that fear of the unknown going in. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I guess the best way that I could explain it is treat it like a PCS. You don't know these people. They don't know you. You're showing up. You're putting your best foot forward. Really, and Gail gave me this advice when I was transitioning, because I asked him the same thing. What is it like when you show up on day one? And Gail told me, he's like, Keith, you're gonna be fine. He's like, just be a good dude. He's like, be a good person. Establish those interpersonal relationships earlier on. Just be a good person and talk to people and establish those relationships. He said everything else will follow. And I just treated it like a PCS, and gosh, it was just easy as anything.
Day one was a welcome aboard brief. Guess what? That's a new join brief in the military. It is the same thing. Hey, here's where this is at. This is where you can get. Here's your benefits. Here's a call roster. Welcome aboard. Here, for me, here's a bottle of wine that says welcome to the team and things of that nature. So it is just like your transition from one unit to the next. You go around meeting people and becoming just familiar with your area. That's what was really cool. Is I was like, I've done this before. This is the same thing we do in the military. It's a day full of presentations. They buy you lunch. They do all that. The military don't buy you lunch. They send you to the chow hall or mess hall or dining facility for those of you in the Air Force. But it really is. It's just like a new joint brief. So don't be intimidated. They already love you. They hired you. So just show up and be the good dude.
Well, it's not just that too, but like you're not going to start work on day one unless you're working a contract role. And you might, if you're working a contractor, they might expect you to be running at pace. But like if you're going into an FTE role, you're going into a real position in a company, you're going to have probably like 2 weeks before they expect you to start doing some real work over there, because you're going to have to get to know everybody. You got the orientations. You're going to have to onboard equipment. I'm coming into Norfolk Southern like a week before I'm even supposed to start. I'm in all the comms, everything. I got my laptop and I was already like logged in. Actually, before you have a laptop, I got into Microsoft, suite and with all my ID, and I was in there trying to surf around and find their SharePoint pages and figure out what they're doing in the program. I'll get there and everyone's like, hey, they're expecting me to spend 2 weeks, but I'm already up and running. And it's just like the military mindset. But other than that, so they're not expecting you to do stuff right away. So you got the time to figure things out. So don't be anxious about starting. But if you think BC is challenging, you're overthinking BC. I think anyone here will say like BC is so simple. The things you do, you're expected to do, it's really just problem solving on a day-to-day basis. So you're going to react to each challenge, and you're going to find unique things, and then you'll think, man, I did this in the military. You bring the idea up that you did in the military, like it could be simple as a call roster, or like when I was sitting staff duty, there would be this: if this happens, you contact this guy. If it happens at this hour, you contact him at this time. Like very rigid, structured matrix of how you would do this. Like I would bring that into some of my BC programs, and people just their mind blown because no one thought about that. Or some of the military stuff you do is just way over the top, different way of planning and thinking about things. So you're adding exceptional value, and if you're thinking BC is challenging, you're overthinking it.
Yeah, and the other thing is understanding for your company, right? Is like, what do they consider as significant, things? So to us, what I would assume, $1 million is if I lose $1 million, like that's a problem. That is a huge problem. The company spends $1 million probably on lunch a day. Like they're like, whatever. That we'll write that off, no problem. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, it is what it is. I'm like, they're like, yeah, if one truck goes down, like that's not the end all be all. We're like in the military, we're like, okay, we need to do this, we need to do that. That doesn't even make it to like the VP, the vice president of operations, doesn't even make it to his desk. You better not be calling him at 2:00 in the morning for one truck being down. I'll put it that way. It really is finding the thresholds. Oh, okay, hey, like Daniel was talking, like on the call roster, like, hey, at what level do you want to be woken up? At what level do we need to have a phone call? I can tell you if it impacts any personnel, my boss wants a phone call, and he doesn't care what time it is. He's like, if people are impacted, I want to know about it. Okay. That's easy. So I'll tell y'all that you got to figure out what those thresholds are, and then just make sure that you're meeting those thresholds, and it's a kosher life.
How hard was it to transition from being a leader? Because you were, at that high level, like that E9 level, from being a leader of people to being a manager of processes.
Easy. Now, so I got to ask that same question in my interview. How many people were you in charge of? And 3,000, like, in the grand scheme of it, about 3,000. And they're like, how are you going to transition to where you're only in charge of, doing these things? And I was like, you mean to tell me that all I have to do is wake up every day and worry about David and getting the things that I need to do for David? Oh, that's easy. They're like, well, how can you say it so casually like that? Because when I have juggled all these different glass balls all at the same time and worried about dropping any of them, now all I have to worry about is this one big glass ball that all I got to do is just hold on to. It's very simple. And I broke that down in the interview like that. And they were like, man, I've never heard anybody explain it like that. I was like, yeah, I've done the corporate ladder, climbing and being in charge of people and gaining more roles and responsibility. I am now good with just worrying about me. And the things that you tell me to do goes into my glass ball, and that's what I do. Other than that, I just stay in my lane and do what I'm supposed to do. So it was challenging because you want to feel important. You want to feel like you have that need to satisfy the same thing, but that's also where it came from. Hey, learning to take off the uniform while you're still in uniform really helped me with that. Like not learning to let go that you don't need to be the guy at the top, the guy or the gal, excuse me. You don't need to be that person at the top. You just need to worry about you and concentrating on you, and that's how I found to be successful.
And I think that one thing that I've certainly noticed over, the past 3 years from my perspective is that in the corporate world, there are high level titles that sound very impressive, but the level of responsibility does not match what we had on our shoulders when we left the military. And, that starts, with the military, when you have a line number for E5, you're going to leadership school. You're learning how to lead people. You're managing people. You have directs under you. And that starts when you're very young in your career. And we just got numb to it because they're like, do more with less, do more with less, do more with less. And then when we got out of the military, whether you're E7 or E9, you're used to leading teams of people and ask, picking up the phone, say, hey, we got this going on. Can we get this team over here to work on this, and then you show up to the job site for the first time and you have this really fancy title. And then you're like, okay, so how many people do I need to worry about? And they're like, no, none, just you. And you're like, what? How nice is that to not get woken up at 2:00 in the morning because of a DUI or, some kind of issue in base housing, somebody, domestic dispute or whatnot. I mean, less people, less problems is what I say. But when you get into these, some manager, some senior vice president, some director roles, you may only be supervising maybe 5 people. In comparison to where, David he was over like 3,000 plus people. So yeah, it certainly is less responsibility going into the corporate world. That's what I'll say from my perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, so my VP of operations is in charge of just here, like in Southern California, 2,000 people. But I have a vice president of sales that's in charge of 6. So I could throw, a stone down the hallway in sales and hit 6 vice presidents. And the reason that they do that, and just depending on the role in the company and understanding that structure, we need our salespeople to have roles like that because that's what makes our people that provide us our product happy. They're like, oh, we have a vice president that works for us. Yeah, man. That's just it's in the title. That's cool, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not like leading this grand division and things of that nature. I have a regional vice president. That's cool. In getting inside of your company and understanding the structure of how it is. Like I used to think, oh, vice president, that means they're in charge of more things. That's not actually the case. My general manager is actually in charge of more because he's in charge of both sales and operations. So understanding, like I work alongside and like I only have a director role, and while that's like to me, I'm happy with that. I work right beside VPs. So I work for a regional VP. So if you were really to put it on the scale of things, the titles, I mean, they'll write a title in for your job description if that's one of the parts that you negotiate. They'll change your title if you really want them to. But don't get wrapped up in the title like Dan and Keith said. Just be a good person. You'd be surprised on who you're sitting next to and the things that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like, every organization is different. And in the military, it's matrix, heavily matrix. And, you've got this hierarchy you have to deal with, and there's this rules and conditions that you have to deal with inside that hierarchy. Otherwise, you get punishment. There's no punishment outside. Like I'm in a BIA, and I'm dealing with the director. We're just, me and him go back and forth about processes, and all of a sudden, one of the senior AVPs jumps in, and I'm like, oh, hey, Ryan, and then I just keep going on. I just ignore him, even though it's like the battalion commander walking, everyone just stand up, like that kind of thing. So it's a different environment, and as long as you're operating, doing what you're supposed to do, and you're respecting people, you don't have to worry about those left and right limits there. You're getting a task done. Your emphasis might be different than that general manager's emphasis. They all have to get that same goal, which is making resiliency. And you have a different reporting chain, so you're not in that same hierarchy as them.
Yeah.
You're cross-functionally leading, so you want to leverage your relationships with those other cross functions. They might have the different ways and cultures of working. You should understand those and work around that to be able to get that end state, which is building your plans.
Yeah.
I see that Mick has said that he was shocked by the lack of managers not knowing where their people lived, married, kids, and so on. He still thinks it's better to know these things because it allows you to care for folks. That's one thing that I also did notice when going into corporate is that you get, your boss in the military or manager knows everything about you. He probably, knows your investment strategies. He knows your parents' parents. Like they know everything about you down to the slightest detail. But then you get into corporate America, and when they ask you, how is your weekend? They don't really want to know. It's like, how was your weekend? Great. Okay, let's move on to the meeting. So yes, I agree that it's less personable. But there's, it's a 50-50 thing. It's like, it's kind of nice to have a private life and not have, your boss to know everything about your life. But also I see both sides of the coin that, that personal touch is also missing with, when you're a people person and you truly care about your people, it's good to have those skills and you can carry those forward, but you're going to see that it's just not as that structure is certainly missing out of the corporate world.
Yeah.
I want to warn you, Mick. I don't know if you have transitioned into a role already or if you're getting ready to transition out. I'm not sure where you are in your transitional phase. This is what I will say to you. And this is another thing that really shocked me. Same thing. I will tell you that civilian people, they protect their personal information. It is very, very, okay, you've been doing BCDR. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's one thing that did surprise me as well, is how much people protect their personal stuff. They don't want to give up their cell phone. They don't want to give up all that stuff. They're like, hey, if the company needs to call me on my off time, they'll issue me a work phone and then I'll keep it on me. But then if I answer it, then I'm going to apply for overtime. So there's some nuances. The other thing that I've been kind of, surprised about as well is like working with a union and how much that's a nuance.
I was going to ask you about the union.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I got the same problem, man. It's a challenge. You could throw a BC plan together, and that union can really put a struggle in there. Like, hey, if I want to relocate a site, I can't just go move people. I gotta throw in labor relations.
That's right. It's crazy. So I would tell you, Mick, you brought up a phenomenal point. That is something that it has been tough. So. Yeah.
You need to understand the bylaws from the union representation, because if you don't understand what those are, then you have difficulty getting down the road. I've worked with unions quite a bit, and if you get with their labor relations guy, like you said, Daniel, specifically with their representative, sit down with that person, male or female, don't care who they are, and say, hey, teach me what it is about what you do. And they will teach you, because then it gets them on their side. You're learning what they're thinking, how they're moving forward, and what they're doing. Because as a labor relations person, as that representative for the workforce, you want to be on par with them as best you can and say, okay, I understand that. And they have to actually hand you the book of knowledge. They're supposed to do that. So you can literally walk down that path and say, okay, I checked this box, I checked this box, I checked this box. Now you bring it over to them. Have I checked this box for you? Yes. And it makes it very simple for that process. Is there still going to be arguments? Absolutely, 100%, because they're going to always find something way to change it or manipulate the process.
Jumping back into what Mick was saying, one of the things is you really have to understand the why behind things. In the military, you can't just fire somebody. They're in contract. You know, it's a different mindset behind that. So if someone has a problem at home, you have to be able to help them negotiate that problem at home. Their personal life becomes you as a leader. You're going to have their problems are going to become your problems if they become problems. So you can't just, hey, get rid of this guy, right? There's a whole process to that and everything. In the corporate world, if you got some civilian problems and that pops up in your work problems, they just get rid of you. So that's that whole different concept, and it's okay to negotiate and get into like with your direct reports and kind of care about their personal life as long as you see that they're okay with that. And some people might think of it as like, hey, wow, this guy's a really great manager and cares about all those things or shares some things, but it's tough to go through it because you might think about, hey, this guy's having some kind of problems with immigration status or something, and then you start giving them all this advice that you know about immigration, and then you've gone too deep into the weeds on it, and you might even open yourself up to some legal issues. So things that you would do normally, you might want to try to dial back a little bit, and then just you can be a friend with somebody, but then you're also kind of screwing that direct report relationship, and it might have some issues when you go into doing your quarterly evaluations or something in that area.
Yeah,
That's a
so
good point.
Pedro, I'll say this, and I want to respect everybody's time and wrap it up on time. But Pedro, you're absolutely right. Is being a senior enlisted advisor or leader or whatever the case may be, it is. And when you're leading a cross-functional team, I will tell you, I have gotten more done by just being a good dude and saying, hey, I'll tell you the biggest thing that I said is I always tell people, hey, I've climbed a corporate ladder. I don't need to do it anymore, but I'm here to push people up. So this will help you by doing this. And these are why you need to do these things. And when I have always explained that, and then they see that I champion them inside hey, we have a weekly regional vice president call, and I tell, hey, Robert, I really want to call out Nevada, what they did this week, they did this, and this, and we were able to get that across. I just want to say thank you to Sean. Man, anytime I go to, he calls me and he goes, hey, man, you want to come to this F1 race in Vegas? Yes. Okay, cool. It's paid for. Come on out. And I will tell you, there are things that you can do that really, then when I call him and say, hey, Sean, we really need to get this metric met. And he goes, we're on it. And it's done. And he makes that happen. So you're 100% correct, Pedro. It's a little different. I'm not very authoritative anymore. I'm authoritarian. Yeah, I don't utilize that leadership style. But I very basically just go into things that do. I always sing people's praises on anything that they get me and make them look as good as I possibly can. Even if it doesn't meet my expectation, I push, yes, less my fans. I always sing their praises, regardless of the level if they met it and required me to do a little bit more work, because then that process will get better and better as we go. So
yeah, that thing's I used to do it in the S3, being an NCOIC of the S3, dealing with first sergeants. You call them out in the meeting, like, hey, they did a really good job bringing this product or something. And then I carried it over to doing BC. I finished the BC BIA sessions and I'm ready for the plan owner who's at the DP level to approve off on it. I say, hey, this team, your directors was the best ones I've worked with so far. They took it the most serious out of all the different functions. They didn't, but you give those little praises like that. And especially I had some challenges with that team, and they were you could tell that the next time I call them up, they're gonna give me what I need. They're gonna make sure that they accept my invites because you're a burden in their day. That's just how it is in BC. So be someone that's gonna be a benefit to them by making them look good in front of their boss.
100%.
You might be that one person in a 10-man department, and you need to make those people that work with you, those liaisons, those crisis personnel, to make them look good, to help you back as a company entity. You want to make them look really good because that makes you look good in the end, the very end, 100%.
That's all I got. I once again, for me, Chris, Dan, Keith, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity and the pedestal to kind of tell my story, but too to try and give back as much as possible. You know, if there's anything that anybody needs on here, please let me know. I'm more than glad to reach out to me. For anybody that watches the recording, you can link with me on LinkedIn. That has my personal email, has my cell phone, whatever. Reach out to me. I don't care. And, you know, I'll be here to help you any way that I possibly can. But Pedro, Mick, please reach out on LinkedIn and, you know, we'll connect. And, you know, it's always good to expand your network as much as possible.
I got one thing to say, just because, you know, we're all mixed military here. That wonderful blues suit that's in the back of you, your blues, does that really still fit?
No. My goal is by December of next year, or excuse me, by November of next year, I'll go to another Marine Corps ball and I'll be able to put that thing back on. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try.
Semper Fi, brother. Semper Fi.
Yeah.
Try later.
Hey, thanks again, David, for speaking. It's been great having you on here. And Daniel and Chris, yeah, thanks for your support as well.
Thanks, everybody.
Good session, guys. Great session. Talk to y'all later.
Take care, everyone.